possibly the most infamous image in the entire Ether storyline. What on earth is the alternative Die Rise loading screen depicting? Some sort of alternative version of Revelations? Well, with all of the work that's been done on the channel recently with regards to the timeline, Dr. Monty, the Hypercube, etc., I've been focusing on a lot of the mysteries that are on the edge of canon, with only small little breadcrumbs to work with. And there are many. But this image is one that's indisputably within the canon of the Ether storyline, and yet we know absolutely nothing about it. It's one of the biggest hanging questions, and this was made even stranger when we saw one of the panels from it appear in the Chronorium in Alpha Omega and tag the totem. I've honestly been thinking about it for years, but I finally sat down to try and come up with an explanation that makes sense. So let's begin. So, for those of you who were unaware, the Ether storyline received a run of comics with the narrative by Jason Blundell and Craig Houston, and each issue contained a new version of an old loading screen that either revealed some new details about that screen itself or related to a future Ether storyline map. These were Nuketown, Ascension, Nakda Untoten, Kino the Toten, Die Rise, and Mob of the Dead. There's some interesting stuff in all of these, and I may make a video on what's going on in the Mob of the Dead alternative loading screen specifically soon, as it's not a different comic page but instead a new page of the Weasel's diary that I don't think people ever really paid much attention to. But regardless, the alternative Die Rise loading screen shows us a scene that, at first glance, looks an awfully lot like Revelations. We see the world perfect, the house in Sheffield, our heroes arriving, and a map. But the longer we look at this, the weirder it gets. First off, the very first panel shows them arriving, the next shows the fixed Earth, then we have another shot of the heroes arriving at the house, then yet another shot of them teleporting. What gives? Well, first off, we can dismiss a little bit of the weirdness, or at least try and explain it. The Die Rise loading screen, the original one, similarly has a weird structure. All of these loading screens essentially have the same structure as the originals, so that's not a surprise. In the original, we can see the similarly weird order. Victors arrive on the rooftop, we see the Earth destroyed, the zombies come, and then they teleport. Once again, traveling from transit in Washington State to Die Rise in Province 22. Here, the weird order is explained by the fact that the comic book page is roughly following the intro cutscene to Die Rise. Now, for some of you, it may have been years since you've seen it, so I'll play it for you now.
I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Why me? Travel where? Don't you get it? There's nothing left! Oh, how did you... What? What do you mean, mend the rift? Well, maybe I don't wanna. Huh? Did you think of that? Oh, you can't tell them about the flesh! What I did, they'd kill me if they knew. Ah, shit!
If you're gonna talk to your imaginary friends, Stu, you might want to wait till you're in a Z-free zone.
Stupider! Get over here, now!
Come on, come on! What do we do now?
We arm up, find a good place to defend, kick ass, that's it.
I don't understand.
What are you talking about, Stuhlinger? Misty made it pretty clear.
Except for fate, begin anew!
We're going down! We're going down fighting! Now!
Have we been here before?
As you can see, the Die Rise intro cutscene, and so the comic book too, is trying to illustrate the cycle to us. The idea that even if Victors die, they can begin anew, and they will loop back around. So, in order, Victors arrive, we see the current state of the Earth, Victors die to these zombies we see, then they are sent back in the next loop. In addition, we can see the previous page of the comic, Nuketown Zombies, and the next page, buried in the loading screen. With this in mind, let's re-examine the alternative comic book page. Our characters arrive at the Sheffield house. We see the Earth is fixed A perfect world, so to speak. We see them walking towards the house, then we see them teleport there. If we follow the same logic, this is the characters arriving, then the characters being defeated somehow in the house, then being sent back in the next cycle. We can say that for sure, as if we examine the map, you can see they are going from Stalingrad to Sheffield, from Gorod Krovi to Revelations. Now, in many prior videos I've speculated it as being other places, such as going from Die Rise to there, or even going from the Giant to there, but if we compare it to a real world map, it does seem to be none other than Stalingrad, which makes sense that this is basically the cycle carrying out similar to how we know it, but with some changes. The characters still jump through the different fractures we see in Black Ops 3 Zombies. Recently I did a video on the original concept in Treyarch's leaked documents from Revelations, describing it not as Agatha, but rather the Genesis universe, potentially the original, either being one and the same as Agatha, or existing as a bubble within Agatha itself. That'll be linked below and on screen if you want to check it out. With this revelation, pun intended, this could make more sense than being straight up Agatha, but rather something more complex as the Genesis universe. They could travel directly to the map, with or without a teleporter. Although the purple flare, as is present in the original Die Rise loading screen, would imply that they teleported there. But rather, it gives the possibility that they at least skip to England here with teleportation potentially, but not directly into the house itself, because the teleporter may not even exist yet, and Monty may not even be aiding and nudging events in the cycle just yet. Therefore, they arrive outside the house, as opposed to teleporting directly inside of the basement. This world, the house, exists as a tangible place in the world in Sheffield, England, and we even see a world depicted on one of the boxes implying as such that is literally a real world, like this Genesis universe concept in the documents, rather than a higher than mind concept. The original concepts for Agatha that exist in the real world, and is even what was implied in the Zombies canon in the early days of the COD Zombie storyline, implied they were going with the empty earth theory, a world within the world, which could suggest that this Genesis world exists as a pocket within Agatha itself. The documents describe it as being set in 1945 Earth, which could align more with our impossible Easter egg find, suggesting that Monty was once a real human by the name of John Dee, a real-life British alchemist. And upon him being granted immortality, he joined the Keepers in battle and shaped this world to his liking, eventually to become his perfect world, hence why it's in England, like his heritage. However, there's a bit of an elephant in the room that I've purposefully not mentioned until now. If you look at the shot of the characters again, we can see Primus Dempsey, Primus Nikolai, Primus Takeo, and Ultimis Richtofen, possibly the most contentious part of this alternative screen. So let's attempt to try and explain it. So, this is probably what you clicked on the video for, because this has been the thing that's been speculated about this image the most since it was initially released. But there's a reason I've left this until now. I thought it was important to really get across what the original Die Rise loading screen, and therefore this one, was trying to communicate first. Because I think it's really key to actually understanding what's happening. Ultimis Richtofen is there with them at the beginning. This obviously totally changes their intentions heading to the house, and immediately gives us many questions. Why is he even with them? Where is Primus Richtofen? And how exactly did they get there? So first off, let's remember what we've just discussed. This is following the pattern of the original Die Rise loading screen, obviously, like I said. Therefore, we are seeing two cycles events, essentially. The first three panels depict their initial attempt, and then the fourth, where they travel from Stalingrad to Sheffield, is the next attempt. First off, a simple explanation I want to offer right now is that this is just an original concept for the ending, sort of an early version of Alpha Omega, where Primus and Ultimus come together in some way. I myself have actually believed this for some time. It's likely that the 8 characters system was an invention in technology, and when they were first concepting Black Ops 4, they didn't consider this possibility. I could see them thinking, okay, we know Richtofen is going to die in Alcatraz, but we need a new Richtofen to replace him. Why not Ultimus? And eventually came back to round out the minute details. That's really what I believed for a long time, and we wouldn't have originally seen all of Ultimis and Primus able to be played on that map, the first 8-player crew, although we couldn't play as all 8 unfortunately. But I'm not too sure anymore. Now, what I'm about to say next is really what helps unlock this idea, in my opinion, so pay attention. If you look to the left and right of the comic, just like in the original, we can see the previous and next pages. The previous page is the Nuketown Zombies page. This makes sense, as it's essentially the same panels, just expanded to let us see more. These depict the drill, which canonically is at Camp Edward, and this is important as once the lab under Alcatraz gets built, this energy harvested here is what powers the stasis pods, and this alternative loading screen is what confirmed the idea of these invisible cloaking drills with a massive shadow bubble that people had been speculating about in the first place. What's the next page? It's the new version of the Kino der Toten loading screen that depicts the events of the opening of the Giant. So, in that case, this loading screen with the Primus 3 and Ultimis Richtofen takes place at an exceptionally weird point in the timeline. It's within the cycle, and it's after the Nuketown drill was set up to start powering the pods in Alcatraz. However, it's before the events of the Giant, where Richtofen fractures the universe. If you are a regular here, you may have seen the recent video detailing the origins of the first cycle, and what happened before it, and what started it in the first place. I would highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already after you are done with this one, as it's one of my best videos that I've ever made. In that video, I mentioned that it's actually really hard to say what exactly happened in the original run-through of events, as when things are still forming, there is a lot of confusion in the chronology. A lot of events are literally happening simultaneously. A metaphorical hammer, so to speak, breaks the universe, with space-time bleeding and falling apart. A big question there was what exactly happened before Richtofen arrived at the Giant for the first time, because without that, we can't get a moment where Richtofen and other Richtofen meet under Alcatraz. Well, I think this gives us our answer. If Richtofen hasn't yet completed his journey, he won't arrive in time at the Giant as we see him do in the intro cutscene to the map. In fact, when we watch the opening cutscene of the map, we see the characters pleading with Ultimis Richtofen to not open the door and release his Primus self, with Takeo even saying that him doing so will unleash a great evil beyond his imagination. I'm actually going to play the opening of the Giant for you now because it's all very odd and doesn't really fit with what we know about the cycle.
Dr. Max. This ain't funny, Doc.
Turn around. Slowly.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah, we know. That's why you better do exactly what we say.
A great evil approaches. There is a chain of events that must be set in motion.
The future hangs by a thread. You must awaken the test subjects.
Richtofen! Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't do it!
You do not want to meet what's on the other side of that door.
You cannot begin to comprehend the great evil you could unleash.
Damn it, Richtofen! I thought we were done with this!
What can I say, Dempsey? Things change.
Only a fool would dare to change history.
I am no fool. What I do only to secure a better tomorrow.
Yeah? Well, let's see if we live to see it.
So, clearly, Dempsey, Nikolai, and Takeo are there to awaken the test subjects and ensure things happen along their proper course. This is seemingly a plan they have come up with in the 2 years they spent in the original dimension whilst Primus Richtofen was absent. I think, therefore, that in an earlier iteration of the cycle, perhaps in the first cycle or at least one of the earlier ones, Richtofen doesn't reach the giant in time, or perhaps doesn't at all, and instead, Primus succeed in convincing Ultimis Richtofen to join them. This is even further confirmed by the Nikolai radio in the Giant, where he's killed many Richtofens before. I'll play that now.
It is not all bad news, Nikolai. We may have failed in our mission, but at least there is now one less Richtofen to deal with. If it is any consolation, tell him that the first one is the hardest. I should know. I've killed at least 3 Richtofens. There was the one in the fire, the one with the boat hook, and the one... What? No one told me. Sorry. Forget what I just said. Everything will be fine.
He says that the versions we play as in the map have failed their mission, meaning their intention was to prevent Ultimis Richtofen from dying. The versions we hear in the radios are further ahead, and have killed many Richtofens across different dimensions, including one in the fire, one with a boat hook, and one we don't hear about. Furthermore, future Dempsey is totally unaware of anything that Primus Richtofen has been doing, indicating that whatever these future characters are, they're not with Primus Richtofen, and surprised to see him at this point with the earlier versions of these characters who they've been sending messages to. Again, I'll play that for you now.
Hey, other me. If you're hearing this, then it means that something's gone foobar. We're going to plan B. Stick to that crap bastard like glue. We need to find out what the hell he has been doing and what he's going to do. We may be able to get a fix on your location if you can trigger one of the paradox visualizations. Good luck. We're all counting on you. Oh, wait. Whatever you do, don't get too close to the radioactive beacon. It makes your hair fall out.
These radio messages have always been a huge question mark, but I think with this theory, they actually make a lot of sense.
Power level critical. Major systems offline.
From all of the discussions in recent videos about the fractures, we know that the reason Ultimis Richtofen is absent from all of them is because he is killed in the Deceptio fracture, what spawns it in the first place. And this is what the comic panel shows us. Without Richtofen's death, there is no Deceptio fracture. However, by Primus being there in the first place, they may unintentionally create fractures themselves in other ways. They have already interfered in the timeline by being there, with Ultimis Richtofen in tow. And this is why time freezes at the beginning of the intro cutscene, which is notably before Primus Richtofen kills his Ultimus self. I think Primus, along with Ultimis Richtofen, actually go on a journey of having to kill other Richtofens like they say, and I think he is giving us the order of their deaths from the most recent for him. Think about the DLC maps for Black Ops 3, the Eisendrache, a frozen castle, Zetsubo no Shima, an island, Garod Krovi, a burning city. The one in the fire could refer to the Richtofen alive in this messed up version of the Agonia fracture. The one with the boat hook likely refers to a Richtofen on the island of Nan Madal, Pompeii, Zetsubo no Shima. Perhaps he was on the boat we see Primus on during the cycle at the beginning of the intro cutscene, or perhaps they had to quickly dispatch him using a boat hook. Maybe he was even working for Division 9 in this version. The one we don't hear about would correspond to the Richtofen they'd kill at Eagle's Nest, the Eisendrache, somewhere we know he was living at recently due to all his possessions in his very own room there. It's likely that he's interrupted here because Treg didn't want to give us the details on a map that would be in our hands very soon. And I think the one in the fire being in the Agonia fracture makes a lot of sense, because if you've seen my recent videos, it seems like Zero-Base Maxis, essentially the most Maxis, the one who gets all the power and what he wants, and is the most knowledgeable of Dr. Monty, and unlocks the ability for interdimensional travel, is all possible because Richtofen is killed at the Giant, which not just fractures the future, but the past as well. Richtofen essentially was dead at a point prior Agonia, which allows Maxis to lead a unified Group 935 without Richtofen's mischief in the background. And with each subsequent fracture, he gets more and more power and more of what he wants, eventually leading to Agonia. So I think without this event, and with fractures still occurring, it could be the opposite, where Ultimis Richtofen gains more and more throughout the fractures, leading to him being very powerful come Agonia before we have to take him out and collect his soul in a different way to Primus Richtofen collecting his soul from an innocent child in Dimension 2-10. It's very well possible in different versions of the cycles, the souls are collected at different points in space-time because events would have played out differently and they would have selected different iterations of themselves, not even potentially in exactly the same order. That could even be a lot of the alternative deaths that we see in the music trailers for all of Black Ops 3 Zombies' maps. They show many of the 1.0 characters being killed in different ways, or in different places from where they initially were killed. For example, in the Zetsubo no Shima trailer, it shows Takeo 1.0's soul being harvested and him committing seppuku, not in the underground prison, but in the main facilities on the top of the island. Let's move into the next chapter. So then, in this alternative first version of the cycle, they arrive successfully at the house. Ultimis Richtofen, possibly with greater knowledge about Dr. Monty, would almost certainly be leading them on another grand scheme, possibly with the intent of killing God, essentially. As to Ultimis Richtofen, there's only room in the universe for one God, and that's him, the egotistical maniac. However, given everything we know, Monty would not just allow himself to be killed, and this attempt would just outright not work. Maybe even Ultimis Richtofen could have gone along with the plan, due to tampering and corruption from the Shadowman to once again face off against Monty. And this is how he may have been unleashed in the house in one of the early versions of the cycle. Who knows? Primus will always fail, even if Ultimis Richtofen is tagging along. This could actually be during the time that we know nothing much was really going on at this point early on in the cycle, where Monty was formulating his plan and Maxis was away. Neither of them knew of the location of the summoning key or chronorium initially. Maxis found the book by chance when he discovered the empty earth and saw what his other self did when he was peeking through the dimensions. Monty's part of the plan, however, was the idea that they could purge Element 115 from the final universe, Agatha, by enlisting the help of souls who had survived through the fracturing. He may well have actually gotten this idea from seeing what the Primus 3 and Ultimis Richtofen did. Rather than killing other Richtofens, they would take their own lives and souls. With this idea now solidly formed, Monty explains to Maxis, who contacts Primus Richtofen. Primus Richtofen, as we know from the timeline, then has the Illuminati build his lab underneath Alcatraz. He likely contacts Schuster, who was the good friend of his other self, and who, we are told by the new Newtown comic, now runs the drill operation. Why would Treyarch even bother telling us that Schuster operates the drill if it's not relevant to this set of events? Schuster diverts the drill power to the lab. Richtofen then has Victus get the chronorium, he learns of the location of the summoning key, gets that, kills Edward C. Richtofen in Dimension 2-10, then finally intercepts Primus at Der Riese and kills his Ultimus self, in a version of the cycle that's a lot more similar to what we end up seeing in Black Ops 3. This not only brings Primus on side with Monty's plan, but also ensures there is no way Primus end up at Agatha again, forcing Monty to have to deal with them. It makes me think this is after the first cycle, as I've been exploring in this video. D becomes Monty in immortality and shapes the world to his liking. Ultimis Richtofen joins Primus for the first time, and this is the first battle at the house. It makes more sense with Ultimus being the Richtofen to do the first walnut teleportation too, which is why D begins detecting ripples in the ether to begin with, and is the first true fracturing of space-time. So, this image was seen disappearing in the Alpha Omega and Hagda Totem cutscenes, and we never understood why. I think this quite neatly explains it. In these cutscenes, we are hearing about pasts and futures that have now been rewritten, and I think this is exactly one of those, fading out of existence. In fact, had Richtofen from the Great War not have been sent forward, it's very likely that the crew would have just ended up back at the Giant and recruited Ultimis Richtofen, or perhaps the zombified version of himself. This was even a theory I've considered in the past. past. Nikolai, though, takes a wholly new and unrelated path, which is why we see this old outcome and possible future being totally erased. Nikolai removes the possibility of this confrontation from existing. But, as he says in the ending, all of their stories still existed somewhere out there, and the memories will always remain despite Ultimis and Primus being purged. So what do you think? Do you think I am right with this hypothesis here, or do you still agree this could have been a cut concept teasing for Black Ops 4 Zombies, where, like I said before, maybe this was the initial plan for potentially even after Alpha Omega, and we would go to the house, joined with Ultimis Richtofen this time to fight Dr. Monty and close the multiverse for good, just like we end up doing, but in a different fashion. As with the Ether Stories mysteries, all interpretations are up for debate and your own headcanon. I think both can kind of make sense. This video sort of feels like a part 2 to my first Psycho video, but it wasn't initially intended as that. It just so happens that this ends up slotting in perfectly to it and really makes me think a lot of these dots were definitely meant to be connected, and the reception of Black Ops 4 just prevented that. Once I saw that this house loading screen is meant to fit before the giant, I knew something weird was going on and just had to talk about it. So let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. I really wish we could find out one day about many of the alternate versions of the cycle that we never get a chance to see play out. Whilst the music trailers give us little glimpses into events and how the characters die in many versions of events, obviously if some of them die without events being set in motion, I think it basically just resets the cycle, which is why we end up back in the forest in the loading screen, back through the ether, we are born again over and over. Many alternate versions of these characters will carry out what needs to be done in slightly different or radically different ways. And with the original characters returning in Black Ops 7 Zombies, I do wonder if we will learn more about some of these alternate versions of the multiverse and the cycle, with it being rumored that there will be alternate versions, not Ultimis or Primus, entirely brand new iterations we've never heard of before. Surely they must have come from a place within that old multiverse that got purged into the dark ether, even if they are just memories of them within some kind of liminal space. I wonder if they will use the original characters returning in Black Ops 7 to try and answer, or tease even, new mysteries from the old ether days. I just hope they do it justice and don't mess up a lot of these mysteries by giving them unsatisfying answers or just straight up answering too much. New mysteries have to be created as well. I hope they just don't end up tying up too many loose threads that removes a lot of the mystery that is still left over from the Ether story despite us having the official timeline. I think the broken cycle and the early cycles are where most of the mysteries really lie, because that's where the Chronorium doesn't really explain much, and that's where we have the most blanks as to how it all really began and how it all really ended. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for the latest and greatest Call of Duty news information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye. To conclude this video, I want to shout out the fact that I finally decided to make a Patreon and Cameo account, both of which will be linked below if you want to help support the channel. On Patreon, you can sign up for the lowest tier of just $1.50 a month to get exclusive access for my Discord, where we can discuss zombies lore, trivia, or whatever you desire. A place where you lot, my community, can better connect. Your names will also appear at the end of videos thanking you. For $5.50 a month, you get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive monthly Q&As. And for $16.50 a month, you again get all of that, and I will be doing exclusive lore videos, such as unpacking niche parts of the Treyarch documents I've been breaking down on my channel that don't as much suit a main channel video. For the highest tier, only for those with the ability to and who really want to help out the channel, you get special bonuses I've yet to determine and verbal shoutouts at the end of every video. Over on Cameo, I can do funny videos reading lines from zombies, memes like how do we tell him, birthday wishes for friends or family, or whatever else you desire, practically anything. Of course, none of this is necessary, just watching and enjoying the videos helps me immensely and I greatly appreciate it. However, I think it's about time I start setting up additional revenue streams because Zombies' popularity is tumultuous and always goes through ups and downs. As I'm sure you've lately seen on the channel, viewership is down a lot. We go through big highs when new games release, but then during these drought periods, I need more income stability stability, so I don't have to worry as much about it, and I can focus more on improving the quality of the content. My highest quality videos are not always the ones that best please YouTube algorithms, so instead, this way I can produce my best work knowing I don't have to think as much about how well the content's going to perform. So if you'd like to support me on Patreon for exclusive content, or would like a simple Cameo message, you can do so to further support me via the links below, but only if you can afford it and you actually want to help me. Don't feel like you are forced to, don't worry, I'll survive. It would just help relieve some of the pressure during inconsistent periods on the channel, so I don't have to solely rely on AdSense revenue and still maintain the sheer quantity and quality of content that I put out. Obviously I pump out literally a boatload of content, and some of these are absolutely crazy projects over hour-long videos, so it's a lot on my plate, especially when these videos don't perform particularly well. And I've not been doing many sponsorships lately to help supplement revenue either, so it would greatly help. Thank you for any generous person once again who does kindly support the channel. It means the absolute world and will really help keep this boat afloat.